Hello everybody, so this tutorial is designed to take you through the basics of Photoshop, and what I'm going to be showing you is how to create just a basic poster um, in Photoshop, and you guys are going to have a go at this after you've watched this tutorial. So when you open up Photoshop, you'll see that it's quite similar in terms of the way that it looks to Illustrator, because it is kind of like the cousin of Illustrator. So some of your skills and what you've learned in Illustrator are going to kind of transfer over to this. So when you open up the page, you should get, and you can find Photoshop in your start menu the same way that you would find Illustrator. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold, guys, so I do apologise. If you click on new file, that will then take you to this, and I've got lots of options because I'm always working in Photoshop. But actually, if you click on print over here at the top and then click on A4, that will give you an A4 page. Now, if this doesn't pop up and you've just got a blank screen, up here, if you go to File and New, you'll get the same pop-up box. So click on Print, click on A4, and then press Create. Don't worry about changing any other settings, just click on A4. So press Create, and what you've got there is an A4 page. If you go to View and click on Print Size, that will actually zoom it in slightly so that you can see the whole page. If you press Control minus or Control plus, or just click on these two options, you get your zoom in and zoom out options as well. So you can see in terms of layout, it looks very similar to Illustrator. So you've got your toolbars over here and your color panel. You've got some options over here to play around with. You won't need all of these, but we'll talk about them in a moment. And then up the top here, you've got things like view, window, image, etc. So we're going to be using a couple of those, but you're not going to be learning everything today, so don't worry. So we're working with Photoshop. So as it may sound, we're working with photos. So unlike Illustrator, where we draw from scratch, with Photoshop, we need to start with an actual photo. So I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to search for a haunted house. So I'm going to do like a haunted house kind of horror poster because I don't like horror. So let's face my fear. So I'm going to go to images in Google, and then what I'm going to do, first of all, it's really important that I work with high resolution images. If I work with images that are too small, when I try to scale them up or make them bigger, they can go kind of like blurry or what we call pixelated. So if I click on tools, and then if I click on size, I'm going to go to large. And now this is only going to show me images that are like what we call high resolution. So I'm going to click on this one. It's not the most ideal because it's landscape, and I would actually quite like a portrait one. So I thought I saw one earlier, but maybe I didn't. Let me see. Yeah, this one. This one will be better because I can crop this down quite nicely. So I'm going to right click on that image and I'm going to copy it. Then I'm going to go back to Photoshop and I'm going to go to edit, and oh, it's not going to let me paste. Let's see. Control V. So what I did was I pressed Control V. For some reason it didn't. Oh yeah, there's a paste as well. So Control V or paste over here. And you can see that I've now got an image. Now you may not have these little boxes when you paste an image in. So this here turns them on and off. This is really important because if I want to resize it, I need to have those handles. At the moment, all I can do is move it around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click that on, and then I'm going to resize this. And can you see how it's now going the opposite set way in terms of that was landscape, this is portrait. So I've chosen this one purposely because I could crop off that information. I was quite happy to crop that off. You might want to, when you're searching, find one that is actually what we call portrait or a little bit easier to work with. But you can see how you'll get on with that. So choosing your right image is really important. I'm going to actually move it over. So it's kind of like here. I think that works quite nice. And then I'm going to press the tick. Now I cannot do anything else until I have confirmed the size. So up here I'm pressing the tick, and now I have resized that. Okay. Now what's happened is down here, this little box here, if you hover over anything, it will tell you what they're called. And what we want to have is the layers panel. So when you're working in Photoshop, you're working with layers, okay? And each new image that you paste in creates a layer. So you can see here, I've got the layer. So I'm just going to rename that. If I double click on it, I'm going to rename it and call it background. And you can see here, I've got this white background underneath. So if I click off the eye, it gets rid of that layer and I can see I've got that. Now I don't need that. So I'm actually going to pull it down and put it in the bin because I don't need a white background. Now this has gone grey and white, these checkered boxes, this means that it's see-through. Okay, so this layer, this here, has no content. It's completely see-through, and that will make a bit more sense a bit later on. If I press the eye on, you can see I've got my layer here. Don't worry about it coming over the edges. This is the only part that you can see in here. Okay, so let's get another element to our design. Let's search for a cartoon witch, because I don't want to see any really scary witches. So let's have a look, see if we can find a nice cartoon witch. Okay, need to change my tools, make sure I've got a nice large size. And yay, she's enlarged. So let's just click on this one. And I'm going to copy the image like I did before. Come in here, edit, and paste. And you can see now, because I've pasted this in, I've got layer 1 now, which I'm going to call witch. And then I've got my background. So background and witch. And if I select them, they will highlight the different ones, as you can see. So first thing we need to do, this witch has a white background. In fact, if I take the background off, you can see how this has got a white background and then the rest of it is transparent, which is why when I turn this on, you can see the background coming through. But I don't want this white background. It's actually really annoying. So there's a really cool tool that we can use called Magic Wand. And again, if you hover over anything, it will give you the information. You can actually learn about it by clicking on here. But we're going to go on to this one where it says Magic Wand tool. If you can't find it, you can press and hold and the options will come up for you. But I'm going to click on Magic Wand over here. Now, at the moment, I can't click on this because I haven't selected which layer I want to work with. So I need to click on the witch. Then my Magic Wand will work. And what Magic Wand does is it selects a solid colour. So the colour we've got here is all white, apart from the witch and apart from this. So if I click on this, what we get is our running ants. I don't know why they call them running ants, but they do. If I press delete on my keyboard, I've now got rid of the background. Okay, now I'm going to zoom in a little bit because we can actually see, oh, I mean to do that. If you do anything wrong, go to edit and undo. There we go. So I'm going to press Control Plus so I can zoom in. And I can see that I've got a white object here and I've got a white object here. The reason why it didn't select that is because actually this broom was all in the way of it getting to that white spot. So it only selects white, the white colour that's all touching each other. So now if I click on this, all of these white pixels or these white colours, these white dots are connected. So I can then delete that on my keyboard. And again with this one, I can delete that. So it's really important that you have the full thing. So for example, if I was trying to take this house wouldn't work. So let me get rid of the witch for a moment. If I was trying to kind of get, because this house has different color tones, or like if I was trying to select the sky has different color tones and it's only going to select, so that's slightly darker, so it's not going to select that. So the Magic Wand tool is good and useful, but mainly if you've got a white background. So when you're searching for your character, search for ones with a white background. Now, if you've got these running ants on your screen, you can get rid of them by either touching them. So I touched them once and then I went back and touched it again. Or you can go to select and deselect and it will get rid of them for you. So let's put the witch back on the screen. The other thing I've got here is I've got this little thing here. So if I take off the background, you can see that I've got this here. All I need to do with that is grab the eraser, click on that there. I can change up here the eraser size. So at the moment, the eraser is that size. I could make it really big or I could make it really small. But for this purpose, it's quite easy. It's not going to impact my witch. So all I'm going to do is just do that. And that gets rid of that background now. So if I click that back on, we've got a nice witch who we can put in the background and that will work. So let's zoom back out again and let's think about the best place to position her. So again, we've selected her. And because we have this highlighted, we can resize her. Let's make her kind of floating over here, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I don't want her in front of the house. Let's pop her over here. Okay, and then press the tick and we're good to go. Okay, so that's how we work in layers, and every single image that I import becomes a new layer. So if I was to, oh look, there's a nice black cat there. Let's see if we can work with that. So paste the cat in, Magic Wand, get rid of that. Can you see how this colour kept the same? Because that's a slightly different tone. We won't worry about that too much at the moment. And then we'll click on that again and make it smaller. Ooh. Now, if you, yeah, sorry, that was my mistake. Ignore that. And then we'll pop that down there over here, maybe. Right, let's zoom in a little bit. Oh, we need to press the tick. We didn't press the tick. So let's scroll down. Okay, you can see there I've got some white that I need to get rid of. So magic wand should work. But the magic wand with this will only select certain sections. So I can select that, and I can select that, and I can select that. So I'm doing it individually. Okay. Edit, undo. I have to keep going back. You can also press Control Z on your keyboard. If the magic wand tool doesn't work, another one that you can use, sorry, let me just select that. Another one that you can use to cut around your object is called the magnetic lasso tool. Now, what the magnetic lasso tool does is if you do it very slowly and zoom in, you can attach it to clear contrasting pixels. So there is a clear contrast between this black and this cream. So if I very slowly go around like that, what it does is it sort of attaches itself. You have to do it quite slowly. It can be a little bit tricky. I'm going to do it a bit quicker. Oh. And then if I go all the way around like this and connect it back, let go and press delete. So now I've got that. Click on it again to get rid of that. If I wanted to touch it up, I could get my eraser. Now that's too big now because I've zoomed in, so I can make it smaller. And I could do this, could do that. Now, can you see how I've actually got some like what we call a watermark on this design? I can actually paint over that watermark here. So I've got paintbrush. Again, I need to make my paintbrush a bit smaller. I can actually select the colour using colour picker. So that's something we've done in Photoshop before. In Illustrator. Where's my colour picker tool? I think it's when you click on the colour actually. So click on the colour. When you come out of it, you'll get your pipette. So if I click that colour and press OK, now what I can do with my paintbrush, because I've got that colour here, is just paint over that. And I can do the same thing over here to get rid of that watermark. So that means you can then add shadows underneath. So if I created a new layer underneath the cat, so if I press this plus button here, and if I put, so I need to name my layers. It helps if you name your layers. So cat, and then shadow of cat. So if I then put this underneath here, what happens is if I paint on that layer, if I paint on this layer, it will go underneath the cat. So it gives it kind of like a nice shadow. And what you'll see happen is if we scroll out a little bit, okay, so you're starting to see a bit of a shadow over here, and you can make that shadow a bit more, opacity means transparency, so I can actually make it a little bit more see-through and kind of blend it together. You can work on that, and if you want to know a little bit more about that, you can go onto YouTube to look for some tutorials. But I'm starting to do a shadow. What you will notice on the layers panel is it's all blending in right now, but if I get rid of the background, you can see that if I take rid of the cat, that's a painting that I've done underneath on a transparent layer. So all of my layers are working together to create this shape. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to show you is, and something I else just thought about is if your layers panel doesn't come up here, it should do, but if it doesn't, you can always find anything you need in the window pane. So if I click on window and click on layers, it comes up. Okay, so it will always come up. If you can't find layers, which is the most important window you need to have open, you can click on that. Okay, so if we're doing a film poster, we need a title. So you've got your text tool over here. So let's call it, if you just click and then call it The Haunted Mansion. Very original name for this new movie that I'm creating. Okay, so let's pop it here. And what you will see is if you go into your layers panel, that has come up as a text layer. and I can rearrange these layers. So at the moment, I can have it in front of my witch, or I could drag it and put it behind my witch. But obviously, if I pop it behind the witch, I'm only going to see part of that text because now it's behind the witch. But I'm gonna put it in front of everything because I want to be able to see it. And what I will see is if I click on it, I've got some options that have come up the top to change the text, and you can use you can use Adobe Fonts for this. So if you Google Adobe Fonts, you can, get Adobe Fonts to download like a creepy sort of Halloween type font or whatever you want to do. I thought I had a Halloween font, but maybe I don't. So I'm just going to keep it nice and simple so this tutorial doesn't go on forever. But try and find something that kind of goes along with your font style. Sorry, your I'm just going to keep it really simple. That goes along with your genre. Okay, so I can change that. I can change the color of that. So I can actually change it here, or I could select maybe the green of the witch and have it like that. I can change whether it both goes like that or in the middle. I can change all sorts of things about it. When you're happy with your text, you have to press the tick. Okay, and then you can move that around because it comes back to our arrow over here, and you can move that around and do what you want with it. Now, what I will say to you is that obviously it's quite hard to read that because the house is in the background and the trees, it's kind of all getting a little bit in the way. So my last trick I'm going to show you is something called blending options. Now, if I click on this text here, this layer here, and go up here, I'll get something called blending options. Now, to help it stand out a bit, what I want to do is give it an outline, and you get this sort of box that comes up, and there's all sorts of options that you can experiment and play around with. The one I want to show you is stroke. Now, stroke stands for outline. If I click on stroke, straight away I get an outline. If I want to change or play around with that outline, I have to then click on it, and I can make it bigger. I can change the color. So I can make it, that stands out quite nicely. So I can have a play around. And the thing is, it's all about playing around. I can make it so it's on the outside of the font, so that makes the font bigger, or I can make it on the inside or center. So you play around with the options and you see actually what you think looks the best. Okay. Now that I've put it on the outside, let's pop it like that. You can do a drop shadow. So if I click on this, let's make the drop shadow kind of like the greeny color. I don't know if that's going to work, or should we do a purple? Purple might go quite nicely so we can see it. And again, with the drop shadow, we need to change. Can you see now, as I'm doing it, I'm getting like a live preview of what's happening. And you can change the angle. So if you want it to be more like that, change the opacity so it's clearer or maybe a little bit more see-through. You get the idea, guys. So once you've then made your changes and you're happy with that, you press OK. And again, this is a normal layer. So if I wanted to make my text bigger, I could maybe do that and then press OK. So those are some of the basics of Photoshop, and that's kind of enough really to get you started. If you have finished, it's starting to rain here, guys. So I'm sorry if that's coming through on the video. If you have finished and you've created like a poster with a film poster with a title like this, I mean, you're just doing the basics today. Have a go at some of the more advanced tutorials. Really, there is so much to learn about Photoshop that it's all about just sort of practicing and developing your skills and having a try and having a play around with and seeing what you can come up with. So I hope you found that useful. If you do have any questions, you can get in touch with your teacher. But yeah, enjoy and have fun with Photoshop.